What's up, Pats Nation? This is DTM back with a brand new video. And today, we're going to be discussing some coaching moves this morning. Now, you might be all thinking, some of these names might not look familiar to you, or some of the names you kind of don't like just because they were part of other organizations. But just to let you know, Mike Vrabel, after seeing the Chiefs winning the AFC Championship game and now going to New Orleans, which sucks, Mike Vrabel decided to go all in and he decided to cook. Now, that's a good thing, considering the fact that you need a whole lot of help on both sides of the ball. So, let's take a look at some coaching moves that Mike Vrabel made. So, starting off with the first coach. So, all of this was from Mark Daniels, one of the writers for the Patriots. So, according to him, he said the Patriots are hiring longtime NFL coach Doug Marrone to their coaching staff, but we don't know what his specific role is going to be. So, about this man, he started off at Cortland State in 1992 as the Titans coach. Then, in 1993, he was the offensive line coach for the Coast Guard. Then he was the offensive line coach in 1994 at Northeastern. Then he took a break in 1995. But in 1996, he worked as the tight ends coach for Georgia Tech. And then the year after, he worked as an offensive line coach for Georgia Tech in 1997 to 1999. Then he worked as the offensive line coach in Georgia in 2000. Then in Tennessee in 2001, he worked as the tight ends coach and he works as the offensive tackles coach. I did not know that was a thing, but. And then 2002 and 2005, he was the offensive line coach for the New York Jets. I could suspect that the Jets O-line was good at the time. Then he was the offensive coordinator as well as the offensive line coach for the New Orleans Saints from 2006 to 2000. Then he was the head coach for Syracuse from 2009 to 2012. Now, he was the head coach for the Buffalo Bills from 2013 to 2014, but he resigned due to personal reasons or personal circumstances. I don't know. Then in Jacksonville, he was the interim head before he became the interim head coach for the Jaguars and then ultimately became the head coach for the Jaguars. He was an offensive line coach / assistant head coach. And then with Jacksonville, with his first year with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he took this team to the AFC Championship game, and it was against us in 2017, where we beat them in a comeback, which took us to the Philly Special Super Bowl game, which we lost. And then he got fired after a horrible record, which they got them the first overall pick. And then he worked as the offensive line coach in Alabama, and then just a couple of years ago, he worked as the offensive line coach for the New Orleans Saints. So basically, looking at the resume with Doug Marrone, this guy has so much experience working with the offensive line. Now, you're all thinking, I know that Scott Peters has done a decent job with the product that he was given when he got hired to be their next offensive line coach. But in my opinion, since Doug Marrone has experience with working with the offensive line, this is going to help them a lot. I know that there's no connection with him and Mike Vrabel, but I think that Mike Vrabel knew that he needed something to help with the trenches. And you need the good people in the trenches to support our franchise quarterback, Drake May. And that is really important. And that is the key to success for the New England Patriots. The second move, or I should say second hire, we also added Florida A&M defensive coordinator Milton Patterson to their coaching staff in an unspecified role. So this guy, he was the defensive analysis / assistant strength and conditioning coach at Jackson State for 2 years, from 2012 to 2014. Then he was the Mississippi Valley State defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, and director of sports performance from 2014 to 2016. Then he was an assistant strength and conditioning coordinator at Alabama State. And then he was the defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, and director of recruiting at Clark Atlanta University. Then at Fayetteville State, sorry if I could butcher it, he was the defensive coordinator for 2 seasons. And then just recently, he was the defensive coordinator for Florida A&M for 4 seasons. So I don't know much about this guy, but I can bet you he's going to be somewhat of a defensive assistant, or is he going to be somewhat of a assistant strength and conditioning coach? Because at least he had experience with working with the strength of the players and the conditioning of the players, whether it's like injuries and stuff like that. So I don't know much about this guy, but I think this is a good hire. Some let goes. Unfortunately, Dante Hightower and Drew Wilkins, both at the linebacker coaching position, will not be retained on Mike Vrabel's coaching staff for the 2025 season. And I could expect some of that because the linebackers, excluding Juwan Bentley, did not perform well. And you can see last season, their performance, it was not good. It wasn't pretty, to say the least. But that was also because DeMarcus Cummington did not do a good job with like defensive schemes. So I can understand from that point of view. But I know that the product that these coaches were given, I knew for a fact that they wouldn't succeed with that crappy talent. So I think that Mike Vrabel is cleaning house. You know that when he said in this press conference that he's going to galvanize this team, he's going to do everything within his power to make these moves. I think that it says of how much Vrabel cares about this team. He cares about like what the Patriots need. He mentioned in the Robert Kraft mentioned this in the press conference that Mike Vrabel noticed that Patriots had so many needs on all sides of the football, and he came up with a plan to fix this team and to be somewhat of a contender. Not like at the same level with Tom Brady, but to like the same level where we could at least make the playoffs. But you still have the Buffalo Bills to compete. And I don't know about the other 2 teams, Dolphins and Jets. But let's move on to the next coach that was also added to the staff. So, big news. We are hiring Thomas Brown. That's right. We're hiring Thomas Brown to be the tight ends coach and pass game coordinator. Now, everybody's going to be thinking, this guy did nothing with Bryce Young when he was with the Carolina Panthers, and he got let go along with Frank Reich. But that was because David Tepper was not a good owner. And then in Chicago, he started off as a pass game coordinator, but after the loss to the Patriots, Shane Waldron, who was the original offensive coordinator for the Bears, got let go, and he got elevated to offensive coordinator. But then, after that Thanksgiving loss to the Detroit Lions, Matt Eberflus, the head coach for the Bears, got let go as well, and he was elevated to interim head coach. But I gotta say, ever since that Patriots game, the offense for the Bears has looked a lot more decent than you think. Even though you have so much great talent, I know that the Bears lost in close games against the Vikings, against the Packers. But against the Lions, that's all on time management. That was not on Thomas Brown. That was all on Matt Eberflus. But when he was as the head coach, he knew that he had to like monitor on both sides of the ball, not just on the offensive side, but also on the defensive side. But if you want to know more about Thomas Brown, I'll read it out like his coaching resume. So he started off as a strength and conditioning coach for Georgia. Then in Chattanooga in 2012, he was the running backs coach. He was then the running backs coach for Marshall the year after. Then he was the running backs coach for Wisconsin the year after. Then he was the running backs coach for Georgia the year after. Then he was the offensive coordinator and running backs coach for the University of Miami. Then he was the running backs coach for South Carolina. And then he was added to the Sean McVay coaching staff. And FYI, if you're hired from a Sean McVay coaching staff, that means something. That means you're likely going to have a good coach. And I know he was with the Bears this past season. And I know he was with Carolina the year prior. But when he had like a coaching resume with the Rams, like he started off as a running backs coach in 2020. Then he was the assistant head coach and the running backs coach. I think he was with Sony Michel. He was with Cam Akers. That's pretty good. And then he worked with the tight ends coach in 2022. So I think he worked with Tyler Higbee. And I think that's the only notable tight end that I know for the Las Vegas Rams. So the Patriots are basically hiring this man to be the tight ends coach, but also the pass game corner, which could mean something. So basically, the fact that he's a pass game corner, he's going to work primarily with Drake May and the quarterbacks, but also he's going to work with Hunter Henry, Jaheim Bell, Jack Westover, and I don't know if Austin Hooper will return, but we shall find out in upcoming content in March, where we will talk about which free agents have re-signed with the Patriots, but we shall find out coming soon. And to be honest, I kind of like this hire, even though people will say otherwise because he was with the Bears, but it is what it is. And finally, this is a source from Mike Reese, another Patriots writer. The Patriots are also adding Bears assistant offensive line coach Jason Hotaling. Sorry if I butcher your name incorrectly, but he was added to their coaching staff in an unspecified role. So there's ties with him and Mike Vrabel during their time at Tennessee for like 3 seasons. So if you want to know what he is, he started off at Wagner. I don't know. I never knew that school existed. He started off as the running backs coach in 2006. Then he was the offensive line coach from 2007 to 2009. Then he was the head coach at Troy High School. Then the year after that, he was the offensive coordinator for Williams. Then he went back to Wagner as the offensive coordinator. But then he was the offensive coordinator for Cornell. He then went back to Wagner to be the offensive coordinator for 1 season. But then he got elevated to head coach from 2015 to 2019. And then he was the offensive line coach at Colgate. Then at Tennessee, he was the assistant line coach for 2 seasons before elevated to offensive line coach in 2023 with the Tennessee Titans. And then just last season, he was the assistant offensive line coach for the Bears. Now, everybody's going to say, anybody from the Bears, that's not good. But basically, Mike Vrabel hired this guy because there's connections with him and Mike Vrabel at Tennessee. So this kind of makes sense. But yeah, I know the offensive line for the Bears, it was not that good. So yeah, there's gonna be some backlash, or there's gonna be some mixed reviews or negative reactions to all of this, but we shall see. Basically, I think that all of these coaches that were added to the Patriots staff this morning, I think this shows that Mike Vrabel recognized this team needs a whole lot of improvement. Like 10 times more improvement than what Jerron Mayo did last year. going the Packer way. This is like going the Titan way, I would think, because basically Mike Vrabel is bringing in coaches who are with him with the Tennessee Titans. Like, for example, when Mike Vrabel was hired as the Patriots head coach, he wanted Ryan Cowden to be part of the front office, and it happened. So basically, with Ryan Cowden, he is working alongside Elliot Wolf as the vice president of player personnel. So that says something about like there's connections between him and Ryan Cowden. So these are the coaching hires that we know as of late. So I'll give you some more coaching updates as soon as we receive some more like information and all that. But I'm gonna give this to you. Sound off in the comment section below. What's your thoughts on these hires and releases? And if you want to see more content like this, I'll definitely be posting a mock draft video coming this Wednesday. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see that video, and we will see you next time. Go Pats.